we've been talking a lot about Disney over the years, and slating their movies, and especially the financial failures that they've had over the past couple of years. A lot of box office flops. But for all these movies that have come out, they've actually cancelled quite a few, and they've done it quietly behind the scenes, according to Bob Iger. He was talking about this just recently. Disney chief Bob Iger has been speaking this afternoon at a conference hosted by Morgan Stanley in San Francisco, where he opened up on his efforts to improve the film business at the company after a fiscally mixed year. That's one way of putting it. Part of it is involved quietly cancelling projects that Disney felt were not going to be worth the effort in the long run and attempting to place more solid bets. Where's this quote here? Yeah, you have to kill things that you no longer believe in, and that's not easy in this business because either you've gotten started, you have some sunk costs, or it's a relationship with your employees or with the creative community. It's not an easy thing, but you've got to make those tough calls. We've actually made them already. We've not made that public, but we've killed a few projects already that we just didn't feel were strong enough. And it did make me wonder, is one of those projects Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? By any chance? Actually, no, I want to see that movie. I think that's going to be glorious when it comes out. I hope they don't kill it. But
well, you think how bad were the films that they actually cancelled? I mean, my God, the stuff that they released is abysmal. So, I mean, the standards of release are real low. So what were they cancelling? I mean,
well, this is it. They thought Echo was good. They're like, oh, we've got to show them that. That'll be amazing.
That'll generate massive profits for us.
I like the optics of coming down from his ivory tower to speak relatably to everyday people at a Morgan Stanley conference. Well done.
Yeah. I'm surrounded by mere millionaires here, that's all.
And there's the one project called Elio, which is like I think it's a Pixar one, about a boy who has an eye patch over one eye because it's about sensitivity and bringing awareness and tolerance to this. And what they did is discreetly, they were going to have that before the big June showdown with those other activist investors who want to get on the board. And so they just chucked it post, so it's going to be after that now. So they just discreetly did that so they didn't have some horrible turkey just before they have to face the investors.
That's fair. One of the movies they've definitely cancelled is Magazine Dreams that was starring Jonathan Majors for obvious reasons. So as far as I know, that's never going to see the light of day now, which must be great for all the people who worked on it. But he talked as well about Marvel, which is probably very appropriate considering the problems that they've had. So he made the argument that viewers are not suffering from superhero fatigue or franchise fatigue in general. After all, Marvel had an unprecedented run of success between Iron Man and Spider-Man No Way Home. The only problem is everything's fallen apart since then. He said that the audience would respond to good films instead. He said that by reducing the amount of projects that they greenlit, they can focus on quality rather than quantity. Quote, a lot of people think it's audience fatigue. It's not. They want great films, and if you build it great, then they will come, and there are countless examples of that. Some are ours, and some are others. So Oppenheimer is a perfect example of that. Fair enough. Just a fantastic film. Focus is important. We reduce the output of Marvel, both number of films and the number of TV shows, and that really becomes critical, but I feel good about the team. I feel good about the IP that we're making. It's nice that you do, Bob. I talked about a lot of the projects. We look years ahead, really, and it's iterative. So I love that he compares his Marvel movies to Oppenheimer. That's just beautiful, putting them in the same sort of category.
And what's one of the next things they've got coming out? The Acolyte. It's like, is this what you can't give all of these speeches and then lead it up with something like The Acolyte, which we all know where it's going because there's no way you've updated that or changed it or fixed it. It always gets me, this idea that people think, well, we made a lot of things, so if we just make less of them, they'll be better. It's like, there is fundamental changes you have to make, and I don't think you even know what they are. It's just like, no, because he hasn't mentioned about it. He hasn't said the culture, or we've got to actually make be more like the audience, or maybe there's something wrong in Hollywood that the way you're actually our procedures and stuff or our hiring practices are wrong. None of that. We just make less. Somehow that improves things. It just seems like he's reaching to me.
I don't know if he's leaning on the magical studio oversight thing. Like, if there's fewer projects, then we've got a better handle on what they're making, so we can stand over the shoulders of these incompetent directors that we've hired. Because that was pretty much his argument for why the Marvels flopped. You know,
but then there was another article where he did the other way around, and he said we were going to give the showrunners more things because they're artists and we can't get in their way. So he's actually said both sides of that argument recently.
Right.
Yeah.
He's just wary about pissing people off of that.
The thing about producing less, they've been saying this for years, and they haven't done it. And everything they produce is garbage. This was an argument that they made a couple of years back. It's why they stopped making the Star Wars stuff. But then they didn't. They just stopped making Star Wars movies, and they gave us a shit ton of Star Wars shows. And they're not great. So it's like, well, pick your poison. What is it? Like, you just got to stop making everything all together to finally make good stuff. What do you want about? It doesn't make any sense.
I think all the TV shows, that was just the insatiable demands of Disney Plus. It's like we have to keep feeding content into the streaming service to try and make it work, and ultimately it didn't, because they've lost shit tons of money on that and damaged all their brands in the process. So, good job, I suppose.
He didn't mention or address anything to do with ideology or to do with the directions with the writers. He made some strange comment about, now I watched these things 3 or 4 times to see what's going on and to make comments. Where were you prior to that, when they were churning out all this crap? And if you're making a new direction, putting out sequels and existing IPs and churning them out, that's not a new direction. That's just like that's like catching your breath and being back in your heels while you try to figure out what to do. What does iterative mean?
I guess what he's going for is like, well, we're shit now and we're still producing shit stuff, but we'll gradually make it less shit as we go because we'll iteratively improve upon what we did before. Which doesn't really hold water anyway, because it's like, well, you clearly were capable of making good stuff, or at least stuff that the audience appreciated. So what's your excuse for why it's crap now? It's not like you're starting at the beginning here. You know, you were good, you've lost it. What has changed? What are you doing differently that's ruined everything? I can tell you, Bob, but you'll never admit to it yourself.
And when you've got Dakota Johnson coming out, you've got Dakota Johnson coming out and saying there's too many people writing this stuff, you can't make it by an algorithm, and yeah, it's a Sony Marvel movie, but people have made those same comments about Marvel as a whole, that the director doesn't even direct half the movie because we've got other people in already. The fight scenes are already done for them. It should be very easy for them to analyze this stuff. And yet, it is like, if you're watching it 4 times, but who are you watching it with? Are you watching it with the same yes men that supported you all the time? Because with regards to your board, you seem to be really fighting hard to have anyone who's got an alternative opinion to you. Everyone's got to support you at all times. So if all you surround yourself is yes men, whatever idea he comes up with, they'll look at, we'll have to change that. You bang on there, Bob. And he'll never know until he's surrounded himself with honest people.
Midnight Edge did a really good breakdown of the issues with the Disney board, and they made a good point that Disney doesn't have a board of investors in the normal sense, because it's staffed almost exclusively by people with personal connections to Bob. Yeah, it's all like people from outside industries that he's gradually brought in, who are just loyal to him, and a lot of the time they don't even have experience within the movie industry. They are just there because they're loyalists. And so,
or a personal stake in Disney as well. That's the other important thing. So they actually don't have a vested interest in the company's success on a financial level.
No.
And they're all very recent. Like from 2016, it's nearly the entire board, if not the entire board, which is probably when a lot of people will go, it's been going downhill since then. So these people have never been part of the golden age.
And the whole purpose of the board is to represent the interests of the shareholders and hold the CEO to account. They're like a system of checks and balances that he has to answer to them. That's the point. He has to demonstrate his value. He has to demonstrate the results of the decisions that he's made and justify his continual occupation of the role. And if he can't do that, then he gets removed and replaced by someone more competent. But when you don't have that, system of checks and balances, he's just allowed to do whatever he wants. And
to be fair, I personally would have no scruples if someone comes up to me and says, I'm going to give you $250,000 a year. I just need you to dress up in a suit 6 times a year and sit around a gigantic glass table in an atrium somewhere. I have no problems with doing that if someone wants to give me that. I just want to put that.
For sure, yeah. But like when you get to the level of bankrupting the company, then you have to start asking yourself questions like, should I keep doing this? Because eventually I'm going to be held to account by this. If nothing else, like the shareholders could theoretically sue the board for violating their fiduciary responsibilities, because that is their ultimate role. It's their ultimate purpose for being there, is to represent the interests of the company and make good decisions that benefit them. If they go counter to that, you could sue them because they're not doing their jobs anymore. I guess that's why Nelson Peltz is working so hard to try and get in. Because if he does, like he would absolutely run wild on that place. But I think Iger will take whatever steps necessary to block him and keep him out. Because it would be the end of his tenure, I'm pretty sure, if Peltz does get a seat.
Well, it's like a lot of things. I know he's earned less this year than previous years, but it was, I can't remember the exact number, but it was in the tens of millions. It was like at least $30 million a year. Once you're earning that kind of money, there's a huge incentive just to kill time and just try and survive in the role as long as you can. You try and change it. You see if you can improve it. But things like, well, we're making less stuff, so we're going to lose less than before, and we'll iteratively improve over time for many years. We'll try and make it better. And every one of those years, you're earning tens of millions of dollars. There comes a point.
We'll try and do the successor plan. We'll try and get a new CEO. Mm-hmm. Trust me, bro.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, we're trying, and we only lost $500 million this year as opposed to $700 million from last year. So we're doing better. Yeah, it's iterative. It's iterative.
Think about the Disney Plus. Disney Plus always loses money, so they're doing a tax write-down. So they're doing a calculated loss year on year for the investment. So it's an adjustment loss. It's not actually that it's gone into profit ever. It will never go profit ever. Because how they're working their books is a tax write-down based on a yearly sort of valuation, basically. It's crazy.
I think it's $11 billion in the hole, Disney Plus.